I now have the honor of introducing our commencement address by Michael Bloomberg, Mayor Bloomberg.
Thank you, President Schlissel and the Board of Regents, and good morning to everyone. I can't hear you. Good morning. Good morning. Much better. It is a great honor to be here on this great campus where so much history has been made, and it really is a thrill to walk in the footsteps of Gerald Ford, James Earl Jones, Lucy Liu, and Tom Brady. Now, I am told that no quarterback has played in more Super Bowls than Tom Brady, and just in case there are any New Yorkers here, I would just note that he played against the Giants in 2 of them, and in the interest of being diplomatic to my hosts, I can't remember who won both those Giant games. I am honored to be asked to speak to all the faculty, administrators, alumni, and most of all, to the great class of 2016. Now, I've not taken my assignment lightly. I really wanted to understand what it felt like to attend this storied university, so I did my homework. To get ready for today, I arrived last night and went straight to Rick's, where I ordered a mind probe. From there, I got a pie and cheesy bread from Pizza House, and a sandwich at Zingerman's. Even I could barely afford that one. And then I went to the Cube and gave it a spin. I painted the rock, and I did some yoga in the diag. And I got a tattoo of a Wolverine. But not just any Wolverine. My tattoo is a Wolverine eating a Spartan. And then I drove back to campus and looked for a parking space for hours. And the whole time I thought, this is Michigan? This morning, I woke up full of excitement and energy, so I walked right over here. But on the way, I passed by something we definitely didn't have when I was in college, a medical marijuana dispensary. I did not inhale, but somehow I feel like totally mellow, dude. And I swear all of this is true, so help me Harbaugh. After all that, I feel like a true Wolverine, and I'm ready to celebrate with you. You've survived so much to get to this moment, including the polar vortex. You even survived hours of waiting in line to get into the maze rage to cheer with that guy in the blue spandex suit. So graduates, this is a great day. But there is another group here that also deserves a big round of applause. Your parents and families. Put your hands together for them. I see them out there beaming with pride, not even thinking about how much it cost them to get you to this day, or the possibility that you'll soon be moving back into their basement. Of course, there were many other people who helped you on your journey. So after receiving your diploma, and as you make your way in the world, remember that your greatest achievements, like today's, will owe an awful lot to the people around you. If there is a secret to success beyond hard work and good luck, it's that the more we say we, and the less we say I, the farther we go. And that's not just something that Coach Harbaugh tells the football team. It's something that the most effective leaders in the world understand and take to heart. Remember, there's almost nothing we do in life that we do alone. In fact, the most important knowledge that you will leave here today with, like the importance of teamwork, has nothing to do with your major. It is about how to study, how to cooperate, how to listen carefully, how to think critically, and how to resolve conflicts through reason. In other words, it is working with others. Those are the most important skills in the working world, and it's why colleges have always exposed students to challenging and uncomfortable ideas. And the fact that some university boards and administrations now bow to pressure groups and shield students from these ideas through safe spaces, code words, and trigger warnings is, in my view, a terrible mistake. The whole purpose of college is to learn how to deal with difficult situations, not to run away from them. A microaggression is exactly that, micro. But in a macro sense, one of the most dangerous places on a college campus is the so-called safe space, because it creates a false impression that we can isolate ourselves from those who hold different views. We can't and we shouldn't try, not in politics or in the workplace. Graduates, in the global economy and in a democratic society, an open mind is the most valuable asset you can possess. And today, I'd like to talk to you a bit about why that is true, based on the lessons I've learned over the course of my career. Let's start with the global economy, and let me put in perspective the job market many of you are entering. For the first time in human history, the majority of people in the developed world are being asked to make a living with their minds rather than their muscles. For 3,000 years, humankind had an economy based on farming. Till the soil, plant the seed, harvest the crop. Hard to do, but fairly easy to learn. Then for 300 years, we had an economy based on industry. Mold the parts, turn the crank, assemble the product. Hard to do, but once again, fairly easy to learn. Now we have an economy based on information. Acquire the knowledge, apply the analytics, use your creativity. Hard to do, hard to learn, and even once you've mastered it, you'll have to start learning all over again pretty much every day. I want to give you some advice. If you have the luxury of more than one job offer, now or in the future, don't pick the one that pays the most. Pick the one that teaches you the most. And don't worry if the people around you seem quicker or smarter. Personally, I've always tried to surround myself with those that have higher IQs and are better trained than me. Simply, how can you compete? You can outwork them. No one can work more than 24/7, so the worst case is you tie. In my company, I always give the most complex and important projects to the busiest employees we have. Why? Because they're the hardest working and the most dedicated. They're the first ones into the office and the last ones to leave. They're the ones that take the shortest lunch breaks and the least vacation. It may not sound like much fun, but in the end, you have to set your priorities. There are no guarantees, but the secret to success is not rocket science. It just requires true dedication and a willingness to go the extra mile. And some luck. But I've noticed repeatedly, the harder you work, the luckier you get. Whatever your field, volunteer to take on some new assignments, even if they are outside your comfort zone. Take the initiative on your own to learn and develop new skills, and to build contacts with people who can help you down the road. When you have learned enough? Let me put it this way. I know of no Nobel Prize winner who has stopped studying. And in the information economy, everyone in both white-collar and blue-collar jobs will have to keep deepening their knowledge and adapting to technological change. Now, keeping up with technology may sound simple, but when you're older, your kids will probably think of Facebook and Instagram the way you today think of beepers and Walkman. And for the record, yes, I am on Instagram. It did take me a little while to figure it out, but it took me even longer to convince my daughters to let me follow them. My life is a perfect example of how important it is to keep an open mind about careers in technology. After college, I went to business school in hopes of landing a middle management job in a factory. I had no idea that factories would soon be closing all across the country, and neither did anyone else. I ended up finding a job at a Wall Street firm. I loved the job, and soon my interest in managing a plant disappeared. After that, I thought I'd stay at that firm forever, and I might have, except for one small thing. I got fired. When I was 38 years old, it was a bitter pill to swallow, but it was also the best thing that ever happened to my career. It let me start a tech company to computerize real-time financial data. That seems simple now, but that was back in 1981, the dawn of the computer age. We were trying to invent a computer that no one wanted, with technology that didn't exist, a classic example of innovation. Everyone said I was crazy, and maybe they were right. I had only a limited background in computers, and I'd never started or run the company. But with a lot of help from some very talented and driven people, we succeeded beyond our wildest dreams. So the lesson is, whatever you think your dream job today is, don't get too attached to it. Chances are, if that job exists in 15 years, it will be very different, and you may have found other pursuits. Keeping an open mind to new ideas will be essential to your professional success, and it will be just as critical to our collective future as a democratic society. And that's the other lesson I've learned that I'd like to share with you today. During the 12 years I had the honor of serving as mayor of New York City, I witnessed a disturbing change. Thank you. I witnessed a disturbing change in the nature of American politics, in the rise of extreme partisanship and intolerance for other views. Now, I'm a political independent, but over the course of my life, for non-ideological practical reasons, I've been both a Republican and a Democrat. So I can tell you, neither party has a monopoly on good ideas, and each demonizes the other unfairly and dishonestly. This is not a new phenomenon, but it has reached a dangerous new level. In the year 1796, George Washington spent much of his farewell address warning Americans against political parties, which he called the worst enemy of democratic governments. He wrote of the natural tendencies parties have to elevate a single leader who seeks power, in his words, on the ruins of public liberty. Today, in this political season, it's worth remembering what Washington had to say. And so allow me to read a brief passage from his farewell address. Partisanship, Washington wrote, quote, serves always to distract the public councils and enfeeble the public administration. It agitates the community with ill-founded jealousies and false alarms, kindles the animosity of one part against another, and foments occasionally riot and insurrection. A fire not to be quenched, it demands a uniform vigilance to prevent it from bursting into a flame, lest instead of warming, it should consume. Well said, George. Where are you now that we need you? We have survived more than 200 years of political parties, largely because the Founding Fathers created checks and balances to temper the fires of partnership. Of course, back then the Founding Fathers also excluded most Americans from their vision of democracy because they feared what democracy might produce. But over the past 2 centuries, through the sacrifices of so many civil rights leaders and soldiers, the promise of equal rights has spread across income, religion, race, gender, and sexual orientation. Now, we still have a long ways to go, and it would be a mistake to think that our progress is irreversible or that Washington's warning is a relic of history. Neither is true, and neither will be. Democracy and citizenship will always require constant vigilance against those who fan the flames of partisanship in ways that consume us and lead to the ruins of public liberty. We've certainly seen such figures before in both parties. In the 1930s, there was the despotic Huey Long in Louisiana. And just a few miles up the road in Dearborn, Father Coughlin blamed Jewish conspirators for Americans' troubles. Then came Charles Lindbergh in the 40s, Joe McCarthy in the 50s, George Wallace in the 60s, and Pat Buchanan more recently. Every generation has had to confront its own demagogues, and every generation has stood up and kept them away from the White House, at least so far. And now it is your turn. In this year's presidential election, we've seen more demagoguery from both parties that I can remember in my lifetime. Our country is facing serious and difficult challenges, but rather than offering realistic solutions, candidates in both parties are blaming our problems on easy targets who breed resentment. For Republicans, it's Mexicans here illegally and Muslims, and for the Democrats, it's the wealthy in Wall Street. The truth is, we cannot solve the problems we face by blaming anyone. We are in this together, and we all must be part of the solution. America's power in the world comes from not the walls we build, but the doors we open. And it comes from tearing down. And it comes not from tearing down success, but building up opportunity. Now, American citizenship does not require much of us. We have no military draft, no mandatory national service, no compulsory voting. Our taxes compared to Europe are relatively low. And yet our voting rates are terrible, and they're especially low among young people. And this year, you can change that. Voting is the only ways to stop demagogues. And the best way to stop demagogues from rising in the first place, slip, and the best place to stop demagogues from rising in the first place is to elect leaders with the courage to face reality, make tough decisions, and lead from the front rather than following from behind. And that's become harder over time. So let me share one last story with you from my time in City Hall that illustrates why. In 2002, we banned smoking in New York City's bars and restaurants, and it caused a huge backlash. We got a lot of angry calls and letters, and I got a lot of one-finger waves when I walked down the street. But as time went by, the ban proved to be a huge boon to the bar and restaurant business. Surprise, surprise. And smoking rates in our city went down by nearly 30% and helped to increase life expectancy of New Yorkers to 2 years above the national average. In fact, I'm glad to say the policy became so popular that cities and states all over the world copied it. Today, elected officials who decide to support a controversial policy will still get angry letters, phone calls, and faxes, if they still have fax machines. But for sure, they'll now get millions of angry tweets and Facebook posts denouncing them in the harshest possible terms. That's democracy in action. But that kind of instant condemnation also makes some elected officials afraid to do things that in their heart of hearts they know are right. So democracy in action can actually produce a lot of inaction, which we see every day in Washington, D.C. and in other levels of government as well. When governments fail to address the needs of the people, voters in both parties get angry. And some politicians exploit that anger by offering scapegoats instead of solutions. If we want to stop demagogues, you have to start governing again. And that requires us to be more civil, to support politicians who have the courage to take risks, and to reward those who reach across the aisle in search of compromise. Now, I know doing this won't be easy, and that's partly because it's not just social media that has changed the civic dialogue. The constant bombardment of news that we see on our phones, computers, and TVs gives us the impression that we are acquiring knowledge. Yet many of the sources, facts, and interpretations are either dubious, colored by partisanship, or outright lies. And I say that as the owner of a media company who sees how the marketplace has shifted. Today, people choose cable TV channels and websites that affirm their own political views, rather than ones that inform and challenge their beliefs. As a result, we have grown more politically cloistered and more intolerant of those who hold different opinions. Think about this. In 1960, only 4 or 5% of Democrats and Republicans said they would be upset if a member of their family married somebody from the opposing party. In 2010, the study was done again. Roughly 40% said they would disapprove of such a marriage. In other words, in 1960, most people would never have believed that inter-party marriage would attract such resistance, while interracial marriage and same-sex marriage would gain such acceptance. For all the progress we've made on cultural tolerance, when it comes to political tolerance, we are moving in the wrong direction. We see this trend of political intolerance across the country. At campaign rallies that turn violent, on social media threads that turn vitriolic, and even on college campuses where students and faculty have attempted to censor political opponents. Now, I know today one of today's graduates, Omar Mahmoud, has faced threats and intimidation because he dared to write political satire about being left-handed in the Michigan Daily, and he refused to apologize it. Omar, wherever you are out there, I'm glad you stood your ground, and I'm not saying that because I also am left-handed. Never be afraid to stand up for what you believe is right, no matter how unpopular it may be or how many people try to shout you down. And just as importantly, never hesitate to stand up for the rights of others who express their views and exercise their rights, no matter how unpopular that may be. The only ways for you to ensure your right to express yourself is to protect others' rights to express themselves. Back in 2010, I find myself in the middle of a huge debate over free expression. It was a national uproar over a proposal to build a mosque several blocks from the World Trade Center. Members of both parties attacked the plan as an affront to the victims of 9/11. Even the Anti-Defamation League, whose mission is to protect against religious discrimination, opposed the idea. But they had all forgotten. The terrorists didn't just attack buildings. They attacked our freedom to live and pray as we choose, according to our own beliefs and values, equally. The torch that Lady Liberty holds aloft in New York Harbor lights the way for people of every faith and philosophy, and it shines down on every corner of the city and every community across this land. No religion should ever face special restrictions on their rights, whether it concerns building a house of worship or getting a visa. As durable as the American system of government has been, democracy is fragile, and demagogues are always lurking. When Ben Franklin was leaving the Constitutional Convention, a woman approached him and asked, "Well, doctor, what have we got, a republic or a monarchy?" And Franklin replied, "A republic, if you can keep it." Well, graduates, it is now your responsibility to keep it. That starts with keeping an open mind, voting, and demanding that politicians offer practical solutions, not scapegoats or pie-in-the-sky promises. Back in 1928, Republicans promised a chicken in every pot and a car in every backyard. They won control of Congress and the White House. And a year later, instead of a chicken and a car, we got the Great Depression. Today, when a populist Democratic candidate promises free college, free health care, and a pony, or another candidate promises to make other countries pay for our needs, remember, those who promise you a free lunch will invariably eat you for breakfast. If there were simple solutions to complex problems, we wouldn't have had those problems. And I'm optimistic that you graduates will rise to the occasion and help protect our republic against the danger of demagogues and the fires of partisanship that Washington warned us about 220 years ago. I believe in you. I support you. I will stand with you in this battle to the end of my days, so that my children and grandchildren can be as proud of America's devotion to freedom and equality as I am. Now, as for today, for you, this is a day of celebration. So relish it, enjoy every minute. Tonight, have one last mind probe, or two, or maybe fishbowl at Charlie's. And when you wake up tomorrow with your whole life ahead of you, just remember, no matter what happens, no matter what the future holds, you can always take pride in something that you all share, that you didn't go to Michigan State. Congratulations, and go Blue.